Hey everyone, it's Mike with It's Pittsfield Tonight. I'm going to jump right into it, and I am here with John Krol. So,
are we going to jump right into it? Are we going to jump right into it? I hope so.
So all of you, I'm sure, know John. John is a former Pittsfield City Councilor and the host of the John Krol Show, among probably, a lot of other things I don't know about.
We're going to keep it that way.
Yes. Until
I'm an open book. I'm an open book.
So, John, thank you for doing this for one. You and I have talked several times, and I've mentioned that in videos, but we've been waiting to do this. So I think this is pretty cool. Some of you know that, I've been way back in the day. I was a little rough on John. But he's forgiven me. We've hashed it out.
I've got a short memory. I think that's just what it is. I don't know. I love your background. Is this like the setup? Do you have
Yeah, this is one of my main kids here. Yeah.
We I got to get my kid drumming the drums, and
I told you electronic drums,
because we're not going to kick everyone out of the house and do that. But but my second son, he said the drums, that's his thing. That's his thing. My oldest son, he likes the piano. He's been playing that, but I don't know. That's a big piece of you, right?
It's a huge piece of me. Yeah. I mean, I think I started playing drums literally before I learned how to tie my shoes. It was just, there was drumsticks in my house. I don't know why. And they ended up in my hands. And that was it. And I think I played in the Stern School band starting in kindergarten.
Oh, you went to Stearns? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went to Stearns.
So my kids go to Stearns. So
yep.
There you go. That's a great school. It's a great school.
I was there the last year that I should say this, I was there the first year it went from junior high to middle school. So that was the shift. So elementary school used to be to 6th grade. Mm-hmm. And then it was,
and that's a really great conversation that we can have today, because there are some people who would love to go K through 6 for elementary school. That that's part of the solution. A lot of people think makes sense in the Pittsfield Public School. So
it makes complete sense, because wasn't the shift, if you think about it, was due to the population boom. So they were like, okay, we got to expand. So common sense should tell you, all right, we don't have that population anymore. Maybe we should go back to where we were.
That could make a lot of sense. And I'm surprised that wasn't part of the conversation with the superintendent candidates, that never came up. It was part of that process, which has led to so much lately. And so, new school committee member, Niana Slaughter. I hope you get a chance to interview her. She's great. She's fantastic.
Yeah, I watched the piece you did. She was very likable. Yeah, I don't know much about her. I've got to look into her, but that was a good interview.
It was good because the candidates were not able to talk at the meeting, at the school committee / city council joint meeting, which I was very surprised by, that that these people were up for that position. So I guess I did my best to have Niana at least have an opportunity to talk a little bit, and so people could know what she was all about. But
that was strange, because to hear her name already after she gets selected for that and not be able to put a face or a voice to that was weird. I didn't understand why we didn't get to hear from those 3 candidates.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to ask Linda Tyre about that, but at the end of the day, I mean, she kind of shut it down. And
well, I think Linda and I are playing golf tomorrow, so
I didn't know she played golf.
I will make sure to ask her that.
Love it. So yeah, and I love what you're doing. I saw your last commentary in regard to the sort of political factions in Pittsfield, and I think there are 2 really great reflections or reports that I've seen on those factions, and your commentary was definitely one of those. I think that was really, really good. So anyone who hasn't seen that, go back and see it. And then Amanda Drain in the Berkshire Eagle had written a piece. I think it was just after the 2019 mayor's race, that election, and she wrote a very comprehensive piece. And those, between your commentary and that story from Amanda Drain, I think it's probably the best reflection of what those factions are all about in Pittsfield, because they're real.
They are, and I don't know if the average person really gets how real they are, because there's terminologies that have been thrown around my whole life that are just part of the vernacular here. Everyone here is good old boys, and it's just something we say. And local politics, as you know, are notorious for small town local politics. But here is my personal opinion. It's very unique, and I'm going to credit that to us being a very smart people in this community. We were a very prominent, wealthy community at one time. Sure. And that lasted a long time. So we had a history of some of the best schools, the best education, the best everything. And we were very proud people. And that's still with us. And there's a thick-headedness to it. I'll say something really funny. Okay. My father is a diehard Irish guy. He's 92 years old. And I was talking to him about, I said, I did this video about these factions and the political cliques. And I said, I'm going to be doing something with John Krol. And he said, John Krol, is that guy you don't like? And I said, no. I said, no, I like John. I like John. He goes, oh, all right, well, you didn't. Because at that age, they're going to say whatever. And my father just says whatever. So I'm like, no, we've talked, and he's actually a really nice guy. We got a lot in common. Obviously, we do the same type of thing. And then I said, well, these political factions, Dad, and the fights, and he goes, oh, let me ask you this: are any of them Irish? And I just started laughing, and that was like the end of the discussion right there. I said, you know what? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's old school, baby. And so and I think it was John Barrett one time who said, Pittsfield politics is a blood sport, that it just is. I think when you grow up in it, like I'll say, like I kind of grew up in it in a lot of ways. You get used to it, but at the end of the day, does it serve the community as well as it could? And I think the answer is clearly no, because when people are making decisions, many times based on those factions and based on those relationships, and I would argue, like I did in that Eagle story with Amanda, that the factions are more based on personalities and groups far more than it is on policy or philosophy. I really believe that. Sort of the Yankee Mazzeo side of things, I think it's fair to say maybe a little bit more fiscally conservative, maybe, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's a big difference as far as that policy, because even I think over time we've seen that the Tyer administration has been pretty fiscally conservative in a lot of ways. So I don't really see it from a policy standpoint. They are very much, use the word click. They're clicks. They're clicks.
That's a good observation, because you are right about that. From a policy perspective, there really isn't much difference at all, is there?
Yeah, both sides were ultimately for the Berkshire Innovation Center. You can go right down the list, of what both sides were ultimately for Taconic High School, and in that case, it was a unanimous vote, which I think was a sort of victory where we. Many of us who believed in building a new Taconic High School, we overcame those factions and were able to make the case, and everyone was on board. So I think in a lot of the big votes, the big cases, usually people can kind of rise above and see the bigger picture, but there's a lot of stuff in between where decisions are made and you need 6 votes or 8 votes for the big decisions. And they definitely make an impact, and it's personality many times over policy.
I mean, you would know better than me because you were there. You do what I do, but the big difference is you spent 10 years on the council, so your insight to it was completely from a personal perspective. You experienced it, and I mean, so, I mean, would you say, I'm not trying to make you say anything, you know, but would you say that it is, I mean, these cliques and these feuds is a reality that obviously you are saying that, but it is a real reality that is greatly affecting the operation of the city? Or is it exaggerated? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely there, you know, as to like the level of how much it impacts, as much as it impacts. It's hard to necessarily measure that because you don't know necessarily what those conversations are, you know, behind closed doors and where people are. But I think it's fair to say that it's there. Now, when I first came to the council, Jimmy Roberto was the mayor, and no secret about that. I worked for Jim Roberto, and I was an ally to him. And then Dan Bianchi became mayor, and then I was on the other side of it, and I could see how challenging it could be to work on the other side of a mayor who wasn't on your team, so to speak. And then came full circle, you know, when I supported Linda Tyre for mayor in 2015 and was her ally. But then ultimately we did not see eye to eye on a lot of things. And ultimately I was sort of off the reservation, as it were, you know, toward the
Yeah.
end of my tenure. You know, my disagreement, I think, you know, once you become a counselor for 8 to 10 years, I will tell you that, you know, I voted my conscience all the way through. You know, and when I disagreed with Linda, I think it was over the basis of what the issue was at hand. It wasn't personal, but I also wasn't afraid to call it out. And I think that's the kind of area you need to get. You need to get to the place where we can battle it out there and have an honest debate of ideas, and still at the end of the day, like, not, you know, have vindictiveness or retaliation. And I think, you know, that's always been a part of politics, but I think right now in Pittsfield, I think we got to rise above that.
I do too. And I really, you know, from my perspective about the history of the city, I really do believe that. I mean, we are a highly educated people, and, you know, the Italian Irish thing gets thrown around a lot because we're not all Italian and Irish, but
Yeah, I'm not.
the foundations of the city are. So if you went to the public schools, or you went, you know, a lot of people went through the Catholic school system here, that old school way, a lot of us came up that way, and it's very direct, stern. There really isn't a thing called Northern hospitality. That's for, you know, or that expression doesn't exist. You know, I told you the
The
Dunkin'
expression
Donuts
doesn't say
story.
there's some sort of hospitality there. It's not. It's a little different than Southern hospitality.
It's a very direct,
Mhm.
you know, when I said in one of the videos, I used to work at a gas station. I told you that, the Sycamore
Sure.
in West Pittsfield. And I don't know why, but every time someone came in that door, I would say, "Hey, how are you today?" To every person. And usually I have that Southern thing because I spent a lot of time in the South. So I'll say, "Hey, how y'all doing today?" or something like that. And one day my boss, Bill, comes around and goes, "Why are you talking to all my customers?" And I was like,
Keep your mouth shut. Don't you know
"Yeah."
where you are?
He was like, "Why do you want to know what they're doing?" And I was just like, "No, I was trying to be friendlier." So it's
You're making them uncomfortable. Don't ask
yes,
them what they're doing.
it is a different thing here. And that thing in our culture, you see that in the politics too. Like, it seems like there's a distrust. People have, like, when I first came in and I volunteered for Dan's campaign, and I just went into this office one day after they said, "Yeah, come on down." There were a lot of people in that room going, "Who's this guy? Who does he think he is? What's the guy with the camera?" You know, and there was a lot of that. And then one day I'm out walking with Mayor Bianchi, and the sheriff was with us, Sheriff Bowler, and we're out for like an hour. And I'm taking a pictures of Dan and then the sheriff. And finally the sheriff turns around and he goes, "Can I help you with something?" And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Who are you with?" And I said, "I'm with you guys." I didn't know what he was asking, you know. It he The whole time he just thought I was some reporter guy like following them around or whatever. So it was funny to me way later on when I see things on social media about myself, it's like I'm a Bianchi bowler operative. And, you know, there is an element that the clicks are real, but there is that element too where it does get, because of a distrust, it gets blown way up into sometimes crazy things. And I'm sure you've had to have read or seen things
Oh,
about yourself where you go,
sure.
what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
which and so in order to be effective, you need to have basically you have to have a shield of iron. You just have to like let it roll off you ultimately. And if you don't have that ability, it becomes very difficult for you. And I'm not saying that's right, wrong, but you know, or indifferent, but that's, I think, kind of the nature of the beast. And I think that's also all politics. I mean, at the end of the day, whether it's Pittsfield politics or you know, Georgia politics, you know, there's going to be you know, some tough things said about you, and you got to live with it. You know, hopefully we're keeping it honest. You know, I mean, you know,
Where do you think though that trust thing? Do you see that? I mean, to me, I noticed it right away. Like you really, as an outsider coming in here, I could, you know, and I wasn't really an outsider. I grew up here, born, raised here, the whole deal, and came back. But I often look at how that was for me, that experience, and I think about somebody moving here who's never been here before. And it's hard to fit in with people because they're looking at you like, what do you want? Who are you?
yeah.
And it was that same feeling in the political thing. And I'm thinking, wow, that's not welcoming or inviting at all. It's very like, you almost have to, if you want to make a choice to get involved, like, okay, which side am I going to pick?
And a lot of times you don't know that. So as an example, even as a reporter, and I was a reporter for a long time before, well, 5 solid years as a full-time reporter, and I covered Pittsfield really for the first time in late 2004, early 2005. I wasn't really aware of the true dynamic. And then when I took the job and went to go work for Jimmy Roberto, little did I know I was now on a side, you know, because that's just the way that it is.